Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. This is attorney Yasser Ali, and today I'm going to share 3 key Islamic estate planning concepts with you. Number 1 is to have a clearly defined goal as to why you are starting the estate planning process. For most clients, that's things like protecting their family, avoiding probate, minimizing taxes, and ensuring family harmony. And those are all good and important goals for Muslims as well. But we have another goal that supersedes all of these goals, which is to ensure that our wealth passes upon death in accordance with Sharia and the rules that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has laid out in the Quran himself. So this is really, really important because it transforms the act of estate planning from something that is just a secular practice or something that is good for your family to one that is a religious act of worship. And that simple change in the niyyah is going to convert the action into ibadah. And really, it's the only thing that we're responsible for doing after we pass away. In fact, the hadith describes the law of inheritance as nisful ilm, half of all knowledge. And the ulama explain that half of knowledge, one of the reasons is because everything you learn in your life, you apply during life. But there's only one thing that you learn that you have to apply after death, which is inheritance. But in order to apply it after death, you have to set it up during your lifetime. So that's one very important reason why we have to be clear about our objectives when starting the process of Islamic estate planning. Number 2 is to clearly define your estate. So you can't create an estate plan unless you define what exactly is the estate. And that's not a really common word that we use, our estate. Think of it, to simplify it, think of it as your stuff. Everything you own, as well as everything you owe to others. Now, in concept, that's easy, but in practice, it's actually quite difficult to define because oftentimes, especially if somebody's married, they have assets that are jointly titled, or they have assets that are individually titled. Most people never have a conversation about who actually owns what. And absent that conversation and clarity, it's impossible to apply fractions that are found in the Quran. For instance, 1/6 to your mom, 1/6 to your dad, 1/8 to your wife, or 1/4 to your husband, and a remainder to the children at a 2-to-1 ratio. If we don't define the pie, it's going to be impossible to apply those rules. So it's very critical, especially for a married couple, that you have a conversation, and then we have to understand how do we legally memorialize what those wishes are. So that's going to be point number 2, is define your estate and make sure that that definition is clear, unambiguous, and also legally enforceable. Number 3 is you have to understand how assets pass upon death. A lot of times people think that I can just write a will, even if I go to an attorney, and that will is going to fulfill my religious obligations. We all familiar with the hadith that, a Muslim shouldn't go 2 nights without writing a will. And so many people think that just writing a will satisfy this obligation. And that's not actually true. I'll say that again. That writing a will for most people is not going to fulfill their religious obligations. Now that might come as a surprise. But the reason I say that is because we have to understand that assets pass in different ways. So for instance, an asset that is owned with joint tenancy with the right of survivorship or tenancy by entirety in some states is automatically going to pass to the surviving spouse or the surviving co-owner, regardless of what your will says. Similarly, an asset that has a beneficiary designation, like a retirement account or a brokerage account or even a bank account, is going to pass according to who is named with the financial institution as the beneficiary, again, regardless of what your will says. So this is really, really important to understand how each asset passes and whether we've made sure that it passes in accordance with the religious obligations that we have. Now, the easiest way and the way that we recommend most of our clients set up a Sharia compliant estate plan is to set up what's known as a revocable living trust. Set up a trust and fund the trust, which means add the assets you own into the trust during your lifetime or automatically upon your death. And then you can stipulate the rules about what happens on each spouse's death and who's going to be in charge of administering the trust upon each spouse's death in full accordance with the terms of Sharia. So I hope that's helpful. If you have questions, please leave comments or reach out to us. We'd be happy to assist.